briefing of the Department of Correctional Services. We are joined by the National Commissioner from our facility in Escort, and with us here in Pretoria is the Acting Deputy Commissioner, Dr. Jacob Zuma. I'll now hand over to the National Commissioner for his segment of the conference. Thank you. Over to you, Nacom.
Morning, Christine. Thank you for the opportunity. Morning, Honorable Minister, the colleagues that are on the other side. Yes, we are at the Escort Correctional Facility. Let me just first start by indicating that I'm wearing the glasses that I'm wearing because I have an eye infection. I will then proceed to present the media statement that bears the decision that I have taken as the National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services on the incarceration term for Mr. Zuma. Having studied the judgment of the Supreme Court of Appeal, submissions by interested parties, legal advices, and also guided by the Correctional Services Act 111 of 1998, as the National Commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, I have exercised my discretion as per the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment in making a decision whether or not to take into account the period served under community corrections by the former President, Mr. Jacob Zuma. The Supreme Court of Appeal found that the National Commissioner's decision to place Mr. Zuma on medical parole was unlawful and unconstitutional. This finding rendered everything done in terms of the said decision null and void. The SCA further stated that once its order in the appeal is handed down, Mr. Zuma's position as it was prior to his release on medical parole will be reinstated. It further stated that in law, Mr. Zuma has not finished serving his sentence and that he must return to the Escort Correctional Center to do so. The Constitutional Court decided to leave the said decision.
Some visuals for you perhaps will show you what's happening right now as we wait to listen to find out exactly what the decision is going to be. There he is.
Although the SCA and the High Court both consider the decision of the then National Commissioner as unlawful,
will be sent back to
Mr. Zuma was not discharged or released, but he was placed under community corrections where he continued to serve his sentence under the strict conditions.
Unfortunately, we're not getting the sound from there. Apologies for that.
In South Africa is a form of punishment
as we can,
which is served by an inmate within the system of community corrections in terms of Chapter 7 of the Correctional Services Act of 1998. When Mr. Zuma left from a medical hospital upon placement on medical parole, he was continuously under community corrections, serving his sentence. He was never a free man with effect from the 8th of July 2021. In compliance with the SCA judgment, Mr. Zuma did report back at Escort Correctional Center this morning. A consideration has been made as per legislation, including processes that were under the management of correctional services. The administrative procedures have ensued, and Mr. Zuma has been processed accordingly. I have therefore advised the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services of my decision. Thank you, Crispin.
Thank you very much, Nacom. We do have a subject. Our ESA colleagues, we do apologize for that. We will try and address it. I'll now hand over to the Minister.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Crispin, the National Commissioner at the Escort Correctional Facility, Dr. Samsung, and the members of the media and the people of South Africa at large. President Cyril Ramaphosa has approved the remission of non-violent offenders in South Africa. There are 212 and 286 inmates, including 9,351 for remissions, managed by the Department of Correctional Services across the country, 243 correctional centers, and 218 community services. Unfortunately, the current occupancy rate is 143%, with the overcrowding rate of 43.06%. The recent loss of 3,024 beds at Butamas and Tumuri due to fire means that overcrowding will increase by 4%. Raising the overcrowding rate to 47.6%, and in turn the occupancy rate will increase from the 147%. This poses a direct threat to inmates' health, security and management, and lead to a surge in gangsterism. More importantly, it hampers the department's ability to provide development and rehabilitation programs. The remissions of sentenced offenders is a crucial aspect of our justice system, done in terms of Section 84 2J of the Constitution. However, it is important to note that certain offenders, such as those convicted of sexual offenses, tampering with essential infrastructure, serving life sentences, and being declared dangerous criminals, are excluded from this discretion of the special remission. Despite these low-risk offenders in these categories may still be eligible for a 12-month remission period. Offenders convicted of non-violent and non-sexual crimes will be eligible for up to 24 months remissions after completing the pre-release program and risk assessment and for providing fingerprints, DNA samples for comparison to the South African Police Service database. These decisions will result in the deportation of 3,064 foreign nationals serving short-term sentences under the guidance of the Department of Home Affairs. Additionally, it will alleviate overcrowding in correctional centers by releasing approximately 9,488 inmates who are inside our correctional facilities, and further 15,000 inmates who are currently under correctional supervision and parole. They are already outside, they are not inside the correctional facilities. The majority of the beneficiaries of these decisions
you might have seen videos like this before.
Serving parole or under correctional supervision in their communities. The exercise of exploring special remission commenced on the 24th of April 2023, when we lost approximately 1,112 bed space due to dilapidation in most of our centers. To ensure that this decision is implemented effectively, a joint task team comprising justice, crime prevention, and security cluster departments will oversee the process over a 10-month period, with the Department of Home Affairs leading the aspect of foreign nationals. It's important to note that victims will be allowed to make representation during the offender's considerations of parole. Obviously, a question will arise whether former President Zuma will benefit from this decision or not. Indeed, he is one of the beneficiaries as a low-risk offender. Thank you very much, Christopher.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. Colleagues, I'll now take questions, starting with colleagues here. If you could just indicate which media house you're from and your question, please. I'll start, can you start over here? Okay, maybe since everyone's there, let's start over.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having this briefing. I think because of the interruptions, it's a bit unclear at this point. Exactly, we know that the former president is at the Escort Correctional Center. How long will he be spending there? And Minister, you referred to him being a beneficiary of a remission system. How much, because the DA was contending that he will spend 55 days in prison. How much is he actually going to be spending? And when you say that he's a beneficiary of this remission system, how much how much will he benefit from that? If you could just explain, because I don't think we're entirely clear at this point. Thank you.
Okay, then maybe let's take questions online. I see we have Winning, Alex Winning. Let's unmute you. You can unmute yourself, you have the floor.
Good morning, thank you. A similar question to Karen, which is just to ask, could you state clearly, because I didn't quite get it, has a decision been taken that Mr. Zuma must return to the escort center to serve time in jail there? And if so, for how long? Thank you.
Thank you. Absence of any other questions, National Commissioner, can you come on?
Yeah, no, thank you, Crispin. I just want to be helped with the first question. The second question I don't
It's the same question, roughly. Has a decision been taken to have President Zuma come into the facility, and for how long? And how does he benefit from the remission?
Yes, thank you. The decision was taken that former President Zuma comes into the facility. He did come into the facility. He arrived this morning at 6 o'clock. He was admitted into the system. And as I've indicated in my statement, he was subjected to administrative processes. And part of those administrative processes, apart from his admission, was the fact that the remission process had already taken effect. So he was subjected to the remission process and processed as such. Thank you, Crispin. I'm done answering the question, Crispin. Are we still on?
Dr. Msoma was just about to explain for how long will we have President in our facility. But if you can hear us, you can take over.
Yes, I did also answer that question.
So we lost you this side because there was a bit of a network glitch. Apologies, Natcom. You might have to just repeat yourself from the beginning.
Yes, my answer was that a decision was taken that former President Zuma should come into the escort correctional facility. He did arrive this morning at 6 o'clock. He was admitted into the system. Upon admission into the system, he was subjected to administrative process, including the remission process that is already approved for all other offenders that qualify to be administratively processed under the remission process. He was subjected to that administrative process, and that was done. And he was then released under that remission process. After undergoing all administrative processes in line with the approved remission process and also the criteria that governs such processes.
Thank you, Natcom. I think it's clear. Any other questions? Questions on the WhatsApp? Can you read them out from there?
Thank you. We have a question from Dennis, the report from Network 24. He is asking, will he be in the medical unit at the ESCOM prison? That's the only question at this point.
I think that question has clearly been answered. Anyone else in the room? Junior, Ms. Taylor, and Ms. Moore?
Junior Kwano from Newsroom Africa. You say the president was admitted at 6. He came in at 6 and was processed. What time did he leave? When was this decision to grant him the special remission taken? This is to the Minister of Correctional Services, the Minister of Justice, sorry. When was the decision taken? Was he informed of this decision before or after he went to the Correctional Services?
So if you could just repeat the exact number of beneficiaries that will benefit from this remission program. Yes, I mean, there have been previous accusations. I mean, we know the circumstances under which the previous medical parole was unlawfully granted. Are you confident that this remission that is being used as a basis for the former president's release will withstand legal scrutiny? And also, there was a crucial question from the SCA as to whether the National Commissioner was legally empowered to release the former president. Under what provisions of the law have you based this decision that you made today? Thank you.
Maybe Karen, just clarify that because the SCA remitted the decision back to the National Commission.
No, they said if he was so empowered, that was the key phrase. So I think there was a question of the...
That's the clarification, sure. Maybe let's go back to the National Commissioner and then you can come. You want to come in now? Sure.
I think the first question from Ella is that she wants to know how many inmates will benefit from this decision of the president. And maybe I will just have to go straight to firstly the question raised by Karen. Then in the decision to effect the remission of sentences is taken by the President in terms of Section 84(2)(j) of the Constitution. And this decision is aimed to elevate crowding space in the Department of Correctional Services across the country. And as I've said earlier on, the overcrowding level of the department prior to us losing 3,024 beds at the Kuntamas and Chung is 43.6%. It's now at almost 47%. And this process started in April when we realized through our auditing processes, which I hope Dr. Msomi will explain later, how it works. That is where we realized that we need to look at a special project to deal with the remissions process. But it was indeed accelerated, or there was now an emergency after the Kuntamas and Tumule benefit, because we immediately lost 3,024 beds, which meant that we need to transform inmates across the country. And the overcrowding in each and every part of those cities and does need to be managed, which is a challenge we started to see around April. But that situation at Kuntamas and Tumule indeed accelerated. And we also, as you are aware, dealing with this challenge that the National Commissioner was speaking to. And I think maybe it's not very clear, is that firstly, the National Commissioner is saying he has taken a decision in terms of the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment that the former president must come back to the facility, which is in compliance with the order. because the order was saying that the decision was unlawful, therefore it needs to be complied with. That is the first decision that the National Commissioner has taken, that he must be brought back into the facility, which he has explained. He must be processed in terms of our laws, which he has explained. So in terms of the Supreme Court of Appeal, the National Commissioner's decision was that the former president must come back into the facility to comply with the decision of the Supreme Court of Appeal. But we have on a parallel program have a challenge of overcrowding in the facilities, which we have to attend as a matter of agency because of what I have said has been accelerated by the loss of bed space. As we speak now, it's an active situation at the Kutamas in Tumu. So that is what we are dealing with at this current juncture. Whether the decision will withstand legal scrutiny, yes, we believe it will, because the president has exercised and taken his decision in terms of the Constitution, in terms of the powers vested in him, that the president can remit a sentence of any offender at any time, which he has done in line with the Constitution. And the president's decision is to remit sentence offenders across the country. It is not a specific decision about former President Zuma. It's about all the offenders across the country. Crispin, the number is 9,351. Is that correct, Doctor?
It's 9,488. Those who are inside our facilities, Minister, and also 15,000 those who are already serving in the community correction. 9,000. Why did this disappear? Oh, yeah, I have it. 9,488. These are inmates who are inside the prison facilities, who are going to be into correctional supervision. And that is why when you ask, when I said that obviously former President Zuma will also benefit from the decision to be released to that correctional supervision. And also 15,000 inmates who are already under correctional supervision. These are outside inmates serving parole and many other types of community service and correctional service. These are also going to benefit from this decision of the special remission by the president. So we believe that the first issue that the president is obviously concerned about is the respect of the rule of law. And the president believes that the rule of law has been served in this matter, and that the inmates were inside or they were under correctional supervision as inmates of correctional services and serving a sentence. When you want to speak about the case of former President Zuma, he has also served a particular term. He has also this morning been duly processed in terms of the decision of the National Commission to comply with the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment to ensure that the law is respected, because the president holds the law in high regard. He has got a responsibility in terms of the Constitution to protect the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa.
Thank you very much, Minister. May I just like Dr. Zuma to explain the timeline of the remission process, how far the department has been facing this matter?
Thank you very much. Well, in terms of the time frame, we start our process of releasing parolees and those serving under community corrections from the date of announcement of the special remission, which is today. And this is a process that is also staggered in terms of releasing from the vulnerable groups up to those who are actually in our facility who are not categorized as vulnerable groups. When we talk about vulnerable groups, we are specifically referring to women or females in our facilities, the elderly,
or those who are more than 65 years old in our facilities, those who are pregnant in our facilities, and also those who are living with disabilities. But I must also indicate, as the Minister and the National Commissioner indicated, that there are exclusions in terms of the criteria. We release this on the fact that they qualify according to the criteria that has been set. So therefore, this is a process that is going to be managed by the JCPS cluster. You'll recall that the National Commissioner indicated certain processes that will have to be followed. For example, the SAPS will make sure that they take fingerprints and DNA samples to the office to be released from our facilities to ensure that we keep our communities safe and also ensure that there are no further charges or further crimes that these ones have committed. And we will also use what we call relapse prevention plans in order to assess the level of risk. And lastly, we'll also make sure that there's a representation from the victims of crimes before these offenders are also released. So this is a process that is going to be managed within a period of 10 months, starting from today. And we also have coordinators in regions and centers who will also ensure this process is managed efficiently and effectively. Thank you.
Can you just say, Dr. Zuma, when did the department start working on this?
Well, thank you, Christine. Well, I must indicate that this is not the process that we started yesterday. This is a process that as a department of exploring the option of remission as early as April. As a result, there are even some of our documents that were signed by the National Commissioner. This is one of the measures or strategies that we put in place in order to implement overcrowding reduction strategy. So basically, there are a number of measures that we usually explore in order to ensure that we keep our in safe and humane conditions. So further to that, there was a presentation that was also made to the JCPS cluster to actually request their interventions in terms of addressing overcrowding, which means that since the challenge of overcrowding is multidimensional, it is necessary that we include both internal and external stakeholders in order to address it. So this is a process that is continuous. It was mentioned that the number of those offenders estimated to benefit who are actually in our centers are about 9,488. But I must indicate that this is a minimum, because as we update the numbers, as I indicated that this started as early as April 2024, you'll find that there's that increase because we're targeting those offenders who committed non-violent crimes and that we categorize as low-risk offenders. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the last round of questions that we'll take. We'll start here with Bernadette, and then we'll end with this one. You will also be on standby to take some other questions. I see, maybe let's also take the questions on the Teams platform. We have questions from Newsroom Africa and Aldrin St. Pierre. Okay.
Sure, Bernadette from Eyewitness News. I just want to understand, so what I'm hearing is that talks about this remission system kind of started in April. What I'd like to know is how many people have actually benefited so far from the remission system. First of all, I'm not clear on whether it's starting today. It's starting today. Why is it starting today? On the day when you need to make an announcement about the former president? And then my second question is, in terms of the SCA's ruling, what they say is that, what they say is that potentially, if so empowered, the commissioner, potentially if so empowered, the commissioner could make a decision that the former president had spent. Question is, in terms of the SCA's ruling, what they said is that, what they said is that potentially, if so empowered, the commissioner,
potentially if we're empowered, the commissioner could make a decision that the time the former president had spent on medical parole on the other unlawful would count as time served. In terms of that decision, what has the commissioner taken a decision that that time he spent should not contribute or should not be considered? Because that was my understanding of the DCS ruling. I don't know if I'm being clear with that.
That's fine.
Thanks, Kristen from SABC News. I just want to double check. You said that it started officially today and that the former president reported at 6 a.m. and he has since been released. So if he's one of the beneficiaries, I just want to clarify how many more of those just over 9,000 were released along with the former president today?
Okay, just to add on what she said, do all the other beneficiaries get processed as fast as the former president was also processed? And the second one is, the doctor says the process did not start, it started in April, if I'm not mistaken, but the fire that is being cited as having forced this decision basically only happened 3 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. So how does that make sense?
I just need clarity on whether the former president is under community supervision. Is he on house arrest or parole, or is his entire sentence have it been seen as being, over? And then obviously we know what happened in July when the unrest when he was previously incarcerated. There may be criticism that this is a sort of desperate elastoplast decision by you to prevent violence and unrest that may ensue if he is incarcerated for a longer period of time, like the 55 days that the DA advocated for. How are you going to assure the country that this is not just a makeshift decision that you've come up with to avoid a crisis in circumstances where it does appear that the former president is the first person to benefit from the special remissions process? Thank you.
Peliswa.
Thank you. We have John Eligon from New York Times. He's asking how long will President Zuma remain under correctional supervision? Thanks.
Okay. I see. Then let's take Franny Rabkin, Aldrin St-Pierre, and then Junior, can you advise? Newsroom is also on the platform. Okay. And Newsroom, and then the National Commissioner, and then Dr. Soma, and then the Minister will respond. Franny Rabkin.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I just want to get some clarity. Leaving aside the remission decision, just focusing on the decision by the National Commissioner. What was his decision and law? Was his decision that the law required the former president to return and serve out a certain portion of his sentence behind bars, or that the law allowed the commissioner to immediately consider a parole application? Thank you.
Thank you. Aldrin St-Pierre.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Commissioner and Ministers as well. The decision on the remission starting today, when was that decision taken to say that the remission is going to start today? And is it fair to conclude, as Karen Mon has indicated, that former President Jacob Zuma is the first beneficiary of this decision? And then the last one is, how did the Commissioner deal with the interpretation of the SEA ruling that as he is taking his decision or considering his decision on whether former President Jacob Zuma should come back to prison to serve his term, that former President Jacob Zuma must actually have been in prison while the consideration is being taken? Thank you.
Okay, Newsroom Africa. Newsroom Africa, going once. Minister, may I invite you to come in? Sorry, may I start with the National Commissioner? Sorry. NatCom, may you please appear and address some of the questions?
Okay, thank you, Crispin. Let me indicate that the sound not very clear from some of the colleagues that were asking questions. So I will answer those that I was very clear in hearing in terms of the sound. Our interpretation of the judgment of the Supreme Court of Appeal was informed by the legal opinions that we received, and we received 4 legal opinions on this matter. Also, it was informed by representations that we received from interested parties, maybe the parties that were part of the litigation process, including the legal representatives of former President Zuma. To put it in a very simple way, the Supreme Court of Appeal indicated that the former president should come back to Escort Correctional Facility to be admitted. And that is exactly what happened. That is the decision that I took as the National Commission. He became active in the correctional system. As he became active, the processes that were outlined by the minister, further explained by Dr. Musoma, were already in motion. And as Dr. Musoma did elaborate, this process started in April. I approved the technical work on this process as the National Commission on the 2nd of May 2023. That was the first submission that I approved for the technical team to look at the impact of a remission process in addressing overcrowding problems in the correctional system. The team did its work up to a point where we submitted to the highest authority through the hand of the minister, and the highest authority being the president of the country, approving yesterday. The process had started in April, as on the 25th of April, as Dr. Musoma explained. Now, in terms of the first category, as Dr. Musoma explained, that category will be processed from today. The process is ongoing. By the end of by close of business today, we'll be able to provide statistics. There is a list already. Other offenders are going through in a manner that former President Zuma went through the process. So basically that's what, and this process is going to continue until the last offender in terms of the categories has been processed. That's why normally with remissions, they don't happen on the same day for all the offenders. The number that has been cited here is just about 9,000. It's quite a number to go through, and there are processes of scrutiny that we go through. This group that we're processing from today is a group that, in terms of the requirements, does not require us to get into prolonged processes because of the type of crimes, because of the age, because of the time that they've already spent in the system, including the former President Zuma. So the main question has been, what decision did the National Commissioner take? The National Commissioner took the decision to comply with the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment and brought the former president back into the system. As I indicated, he arrived at 6 o'clock, he was admitted into the system, and as it has been explained, once he became active into the system, that process was also part of a process that was already ensuing of the remission process. So that was then the procedure that was then followed to process the former president. Thank you, Crispin.
Thank you, Minister.
I think there is a question whether the fact that there was riot and that there is a consideration that the riots may reoccur on the basis of the decision of the National Commissioner, was that taken into account? Or whether will it be fair to suggest that that was what informed the decision? Firstly is that myself nor the President did not interfere with the decision of the National Commissioner. We allowed the National Commissioner to seek legal opinions, to consult the parties, to read the representations without any interference. We also allowed him to inform us of his decision, which he did. He informed me yesterday about his decision, about the former president, that his decision is what he has explained here, that he is complying with the Supreme Court of Appeal judgment, the judgment that states that the former president must come back into the facility. The decision to release him was unlawful, and therefore he must be brought back. So the National Commissioner did inform me about that decision. And in that process, as I've said, already the process of remission had already started in April to look into the overcrowding facilities and also the situation that we currently have, which I've said is active. And you are saying, how does this make sense? This is how it makes sense. We currently have, by count last night, we had taken out more than 500 inmates from Makgothi correctional facilities. We currently have standing here more than 2,000 inmates sitting in a warehouse in a very cold environment with no amenities or anything as they used to have. These inmates are taken every day on a day-by-day basis. From Tuesday, we have transported on a daily basis about 300 or so to various facilities across the country. And these inmates, when we transport them, we take them, to give you an example, to Mataji Correctional Facility. The Mataji Correctional Facility itself, where we're taking, for example, 300 inmates to that facility, is already overcrowded. We take another 300 to Barberton, for example. Barberton, as we speak, is overcrowded. We take another 500 or so to Polokwane. That Polokwane facility is already overcrowded. We are still going to take these 2,000 that is in Makgothi to all the facilities across the country. So it is an emergency, that situation we are having in Makgothi. So it does need an intervention of a special remission so that other inmates of low-risk offenders who are left with 12 months or 6 months or so in our facilities are taken out, so that we allow these ones who are coming into those facilities to be taken in as a matter of urgency. Because, as I'm saying, it's an active situation that we are currently dealing with there. And there is no basis for us to interfere with the court decisions with regards to former President Zuma. And as you will have seen, the President has allowed even the former National Commissioner and the current National Commissioner to deal with the compliance with the law, because the President believes and respects the Constitution. So it doesn't matter whether it's former President Zuma or not. And you will also see, we are also not interfering with these court processes that are currently undergoing, because that also is a process that must be respected, and the law must take its course. So the law has taken its course with regards to the former President Zuma. The National Commissioner has taken a decision, and that decision was not interfered with, neither did we meddle with it. But the reality which we are sitting with of overcrowding in our facilities necessitates that this process of remission must kick in without any delay. We cannot afford to have another 1 hour of it not coming in because of the active situation that, as I said, we are currently dealing with. We have always had overcrowding. It's not new, as Dr. Msome said, and you will have heard that I said it was not new. We were dealing with it indeed, looking at the project, which we were going to announce anyway at some point. But it was accelerated by this current active situation we find ourselves in. I can't remember the other...
Why does the process start today?
Because we cannot wait any longer.
Why didn't it start in May then, when the acting commission said he signed the papers?
Because you need to follow all the processes. In May, we had not completed the processes.
Coincidence? Are you saying it's just coincidence that it's starting today on the day that the decision is...
No, I'm not saying it's a coincidence. I'm saying the process of remission has to go through all procedures. So you don't wake up. The president does, although it's his decision, it's his discretion. He doesn't just wake up and take the decision. It must be processed. He must be able to be explained that these are issues and this is the situation. So the situation we have now is compounded by the Makgothi situation, which we had to intervene without delay. But the process of remissions, and I hope Dr. Msome can be able to give the timelines up until they are able to see that that is when it started. It has just been compounded by the Makgothi situation. It could no longer wait any longer because of that situation. So it has to start today. I don't know if there's any other question that we did not answer.
Just to clarify, the former president is the first person to benefit from it.
Yeah, I think that one is the National Commissioner who can answer because he's in that facility, and Dr. Msome.
And is he going to be under house arrest?
Yeah, so that is also Dr. Msome for them to respond to. What happens, as I've explained earlier, is that those who benefit from the system, firstly, depending on the level of sentence, they then move to the correctional supervision processes. But there could be those that may be released altogether and so forth, depending on the sentencing. So that's why Dr. Msome and the National Commissioner becomes the relevant people to then explain that particular procedure. Thank you.
Sorry, the last one is, what time did he leave? You told us he arrived at 6 a.m. What time did he leave?
Maybe we can give that to the National Commissioner. National Commissioner, there's a question around the actual process. What time did President Zuma come in, and possibly what time did he leave? If you can take that, please. And I think, colleagues, then that would conclude our press conference. I think we have exhausted all the relevant questions that can be exhausted on this. Over to you, Netcom.
Thank you, Crispin. I did indicate that the former president came in at 6 o'clock and he left after 7 o'clock. And he left after all the administrative processes that were required to be undertaken in line with the criteria that as the National Commissioner have approved of implementing the remission that was approved by the President and been undertaken.
The Netcom on
and I did indicate earlier also that the first category, as explained by Dr. Msome, the category of the elderly, and vulnerable groups, including pregnant women, is going to be processed for the day. At the end of the day, we will then provide the statistics as to how many have been processed. Thank you, Crispin.
Thank you, Netcom. That's the clarity that we needed. Thank you very much, colleagues. That then concludes our press conference. Much appreciated.
Crispin.
You can take it offline. That the National Commissioner has just said there are a number of people who have been processed today. We will provide the full list by close of business. Thank you.
Crispin, can I just ask a very a simple question to add to Karen's?
Okay.
Sorry, the question is, is Mr. Zuma now discharged from the system? Is Mr. Zuma now a free man? Or is he subject still to some correctional services supervision or some form of parole? In simple terms, is he released completely now?
That question has been answered already, but Netcom, do you want to give your answer again, please? Yeah. Netcom, can you hear us on your side?
Yes, I can hear. We have indicated throughout this media conference that former President Zuma has been released on remission. All the offenders that are released on remission, the department continues to keep contact with them. He is not under a system of parole. He has been released on remission. But I want to repeat again, all the offenders that the department release on the remission, the department continues to have contact with them. That's why we can even be able to report those that have gone back to the lifetime, and we are able to bring them back into the system. Thank you, Crispin.
Thank you. That concludes the press briefing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Colleagues, just so we're clear, if you want to ask about the remission process, I will take those queries. If you want to ask about the parole, the decision effected by the National Commissioner, please engage with Singabako Ngumalo.